share this. Do this a minute. For the record, I'm not starting yet. I have to wait for people to come in, but I'm not dressed like this for my health. Believe me. So we'll begin. We'll begin in about 5 minutes. I'm letting people filter in. Maybe 3 minutes. You know the deal. Welcome to Coronavirus Central. I'm your host, Tom Kaczynski. I won't be in a couple minutes, but that's okay. You guys know if I'm dressed like this, I'm ready to roll, brothers. So anyway, get your questions lined up. I will go through them, and we will be ready to roll pretty quickly. I'll be back in 2 minutes. I'm not disappearing on you. I'm giving you a chance to get ready for my grand entrance. So, as you can see, I am ready to roll. Yeah, brother. Until I start, let me go ahead and just say welcome to everybody. Thank you for tuning in for Coronavirus Central Unscripted. I also want to say special thanks to everyone who's been helping with me getting the computer fixed. It's now in the shop. I don't know how much it's going to be, but your assistance has been very helpful, and I'm going to do a shout out to everybody on the Monday morning show who went ahead and helped out. Unless you specifically don't want me to, in which case let me know. I'm only going to say your last names just because I don't want to give anyone's private information out. So, but thank you very much. God bless. Very appreciative for that. So like I said, I'm going to give this, because I can't post the live links ahead of time when I'm doing this on YouTube now until I get my stupid computer back. So you're just going to have to deal with the fact that I come in here. But I know people will come in. I'll wait until we're about 4 minutes in, and then I'll go ahead and start. So I hope you guys all appreciate this. I don't know who I look more like. Do I look like sort of like, I don't know. Well, you guys tell me. Who do you think I look like? Do I look like anybody? I know, right? Isn't it? It's a good look. I'm an attractive man. I'm a ladies' man. You know, I haven't had hair since I was about 25 years old, to be honest with you, so it's a very different look, you know? If I want to have a mullet, it's a half mullet at best, you know what it is? I have more hair coming out of my ears than I do at the top of my head. It's one of those things that's absolutely true. Sad, but true. Getting old sucks. We'll have some fun with this, though. Don't even worry about it. We're having a good time tonight. And I hope you are all having a very nice evening as well. Like I said, the show will begin in a couple minutes. Just letting people come in here. I look like Dimebag. I know, right? You know what? I need a prop that actually goes with it. See, the problem is, I don't know, like, this guy doesn't really look like a smoker. Otherwise, I'd have a vape pen or something that would be entertaining. Although maybe it would work. I don't know. I usually have a something for a prop. I looked at props, but like the ones I could use to be interesting would be perceived potentially as a threat and get me kicked from Facebook. So I don't want to do that. So I'm just gonna have to build up the rant a little bit. But we'll go ahead and do that, and then we'll go into this will probably serve in lieu of a monologue. We'll go into your questions. We'll look at all the different things. Maybe talk about how stupid the CDC is being. Yeah, I would love. Why don't you bring me a brewski, honey? Well, then why'd you ask me if I wanted a beer? Because I thought it would be a good idea. It is a good idea. Why didn't you get me one? My knee's jacked up. All right, I'll be right back with a beer. Be right back. Get something to drink. It'll make it funnier for both of us. I do feel like I look a little bit like Jerry Garcia. That's true. I will get by. I will survive. Ladies and gentlemen, the party can resume. I am your host, Randy, in charge here of Coronavirus Central, and we have taken back this program for the people. We are going to make America great. The virus is over. It has been defeated, and we are going to put all those little Congress critters in jail. You see this corona? I'm going to consume this just like we consumed that bullshit virus. I've been going around ripping masks off faces, breathing some hooch in their faces, because I'm going to tell you, the only thing that's going to do is help sanitize you. When I was a kid, my papa gave me nothing but Listerine, and I came out just fine, don't you know it? That's how it really went down. Now, welcome to my America. Let me tell you what's happening. We're opening up this country, and thanks to God, Jesus, and President Donald Trump, the holy trinity of what's happening in America, we are going to make America great again. We are going to send Joe Biden back to wherever his people came from, probably to Ukraine or from China or somewhere else. That doesn't matter. And then go straight to hell with that bitch Hillary. Because let me tell you something. My country, my president, we ain't going to do anything that's wrong. We're going to open up. We're going to have ourselves an economy. And I'm going to go like a good American man. I'm going to make my $15 an hour. I ain't going to earn it like no welfare bum. I earn my beer. You see that? That sweat on my brow? That tastes real good because I earned that shit. Now, people like to say, I don't know nothing about nothing. But let me tell you something. I've been out here a long time, and I learned a thing or two. And I learned my Constitution says that God says I can do whatever the hell I want whenever I want to. That's what heaven is. Being able to do what you want whenever you want and not asking any questions except you don't want to go ahead and say anything bad about good Lord Jesus. You don't want to do that. And you can't go around and kill any babies, at least till they grow up and fall apart. Now, I'm going to tell you some things about the way the world really works. This pandemic, let me tell you something. This was nothing but a load of hooey. We absolutely had this problem where we were going around and we were going and saying, oh yeah, you can't go to work and you can't go to church and you can't go to school and you can't do nothing. You're supposed to just sit and hide and be scared. Well, I ain't scared of nothing. I wasn't scared of learning. I wasn't scared of teachers. Hell, I was in the military. When they shot at me, I didn't even duck for bullets. I knew not to be scared of anything because you know what? This school's so thick, ain't nothing going through it. Because it's solid, and that's what you need. You need solid thinking here in America. You need to be able to go ahead and see through all this crap and all this kablooey that they're telling us. We got all these people, their little fancy letters and their little fancy suits and little fancy glasses saying, I can't handle a little cold, I can't handle a little sneeze. Why don't you go in the real world? I drank milk that was 2 weeks too old, and look what I did. I spit that out like nothing. It didn't give me any problem. All it did, it was like free Metamucil. I didn't even have to go to the proctologist. Forget that exam. I took care of my own problems. That's American ingenuity. That's what we need in this country to come back to us. You understand that? Do you need me to teach you a lesson, boy? You don't know how things work, but I teach you the way things work. You figure it out on your own. You don't let anyone tell you what you can do. You got to go out there. You got to go see things. And you know what? I love all these old people. They ain't afraid. They got one foot in the grave. They're going to jump both of them and cut their feet right through the bottom of that casket. And you know what? They're going to go straight down to hell and kick Satan's ass because that's what takes a brave American to do. And I tell you something. You better be listening. You better be paying attention, boy. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to go win ourselves an election now. We're going to go out there and we are going to get this job done. Because let me tell you something. I don't want to have communism. I don't want to have China. I ain't going to let the Democrats give the country over. You want to be eating an egg roll at every meal? You better be voting for Joe Biden. You think that's good? Cabbage ain't supposed to be that. That's rabbit food, not people food. And yet those people eat anything. They eat the rabbit, they eat the food, they eat the plastic. Hell, they probably ate the damn box it's in. I knew a store at one place, Chinese food place. It was right next to the pet food place. They served the same damn mouses to the pets that they went ahead and they gave to the people. That's a true story. That really happened. I saw that down there in Kentucky. That wasn't good. Ohio River Boulevard. That's a scary place. I tell you what, though, that ain't American food. I want meat and potatoes. You understand that? That's the only vegetable you eat. You can have French fries, mashed potato, baked potato, but you eat anything green and leafy? What's that? Huh? What's that? You gonna turn into a rabbit? You gonna turn into a little squirrel? You think that's a good idea? Oh, you guys want some free bird? Oh, I don't know. You guys can't handle Skinner. You have to earn some Skinner. You see, we ain't in Sweet Home Alabama anymore. I'm up here north, with Army of Occupation for the American Army, just like our good granddaddy General Lee would have had us do it. That's what I'm up here teaching these New Englanders a lesson about what they need to know. Because they don't understand it. First I conquered Corona, now we're going to conquer these damn Yankees. They ain't learned a damn thing in 160 years. You don't mess with a Southern man. You don't come between him and his church. You don't come between him and his Waffle House. You understand that? There's a reason they put two on each side of the street. I might just get hungry before I have a chance to get over there. And I'm going to do what I want, when I want. And if you have any problem with me, you come up here and get a piece of me. Let me tell you something. You're worried about germs? I breathe in your face. And then I give you the python and the bullet. That's what we're going to do. Now, you understand that? I'm going to take some questions from you guys. We ain't going to let Tom do nothing. I put him in the closet. He was busy complaining. Don't you think I ain't thinking? We ain't got time for that. You understand that? Our economy's dying. This is a war. We're going to go out there. We're going to honor Memorial Day by buying things. The American way we always do. We buy everything, except no more of that Chinese junk. My stuff's all going to be made in America, produced at Walmart, where you know things are from America. That's where you have to go. And I ain't standing on no line. I'm going to get the missus. She's going to go in there on that cart. She's going to bowl everyone down like 10 pins, and we're going straight into Walmart. And we're going for the jumbo size, because that's the only one that leaves you full. That's good value. That's how American goes. Oh, man. Anyway. These are the questions. Let's see if you guys have anything for me on this stupid device. Now, I'll tell you once. I ain't gonna tell you again. We're staying open. I'm staying out. Because you know what you made me do? You made me spend 1 month with my wife. That ain't right. You don't do that to a man. You understand that? It's a person's God-given right to go out there and not have to spend all his time around his woman. I enjoy spending about 3 minutes with her every evening, and that's my constitutional obligation. But beyond that, you're asking too much. I'm going to go back out there, I'm going to go shoot something, and if you get in my way, I'm going to shoot you too. Don't question it. And I tell you, I might not be the best shot anymore, but I got more than enough bullets to go ahead and solve this problem. You understand that? So, we're not going back, and if there's a second wave, you know what I'm going to go ahead and do? I'm going to ride it like a pony. That's all I'm going to do, because you know what? I don't care about virus. I don't care about anything except my liberty, my freedom, and the Constitution. When Moses came down from the mountain, what do you think he wrote? 10 amendments? 10 commandments? Huh? They just waited to tell that till they came here to America, the shining city on the hill. And that's what we've been living with. So you ain't taking my liberty. You ain't taking my guns. And hell no, you ain't taking my beer. Now, my name's Randy. And if any of you guys think you're going to shut me down, I'll be back. Don't make me come back. And let me tell you something. I'll see you with all 100 of my cousins in November. We're all going to go vote. That's all. None of this mail-in stuff. We ain't doing that. You ain't going to steal our votes. We're going to be there in person. And if you show up and you ain't looking right, you better be going back home, poor. Because we be waiting for you. We know where you live. Okay. So, did you like it? Did you have fun? Oh, man. That is hard on my voice. That was Randy informing us live from Trump campaign headquarters what will be happening to the rest of us. And hopefully you enjoy my soliloquy version of, what this looks like. Welcome to Coronavirus Central Unscripted. It is the Fabulous Friday show. I am your host, Tom Kaczynski, and I am here being the world's best or worst actor. Hopefully you enjoyed that. That was hard on my throat, to be very sure. But actually, that's not really that much of an exaggeration from some of the things that I've actually experienced in life. And mind you, I could make fun of, and we make fun of all sides. In case you've never tuned into the show before, I am more than happy to make fun of any and every character. Any person can be made fun of. The only person I won't make fun of, I'm a good Christian. I won't ever make fun of the Lord, but I'll make fun of everything else and need it out. Oh, I got some alcohol, but I mean, Yeah, I don't know. I hopefully that was good, and I was able to pull that together, and y'all had a lot of fun with me doing that. The problem is, I bet you someone tuned in not even knowing what it was and thought this is really what they were watching, and that's kind of funny. Although it's way too hot in here for me, my head to be sweating like crazy. So, welcome to the show. What am I going to talk about tonight? I've been watching the CDC give absolutely terrible advice. Now they're saying it doesn't exist on surfaces. The virus isn't out there, even though we see China shut down the whole northeast of their country. You like the wrestler bit, Raven? I really do model it on that. I put a little bit of Mick Foley in it, a little bit of Randy Savage in it. Ooh, yeah. And I was a big wrestling fan back in the day. True story. I actually went to the ECW arena back in the day. It really is a bingo hall and a total shithole. Very fun time. Good memories of South Philadelphia from when I was in college. Probably my happiest memories at Swarthmore were at a terrible, decrepit wrestling hall. So absolutely one of the more interesting parts of my life. But what I wanted to share with you is, the CDC is going out there saying this can't survive on surfaces, and you don't need to wear masks, and they don't even mention eye protection, and it almost seems like they're going out there and wanting to cause a second wave. Yeah, no, EC Dub, man. EC Dub, EC Dub, where you can see 14-year-olds smoking joints and throwing glass bottles into the ring. Absolutely crazy scene down there in Philadelphia. Like I said, memories from when I was a kid. I wouldn't trade him for anything. The world was much more extreme back then. We're gonna take it to the extreme. Paul Heyman's actually brilliant, but that's neither here nor there. You guys aren't paying, well, you aren't paying me anyway, but if you were paying me, you wouldn't be paying me for my commentary on, to act like I was on PW Torch or something. But what I did want to say is we are now dealing with a situation where I think we have to assume our government is trying to enable and assist the spread of this virus. And why am I saying that? Because they've made the decision that economically they're just not willing to pay the cost of things being shut down. And so they're now changing the facts to go ahead and fit things better, where they're reducing the numbers of people who have this. They're looking at every way to go ahead and make it sound less important, because when it starts recurring, as we already see the hint in the uptick in places like Texas and Georgia, they're doing this deliberately so they can say, well, this isn't any worse than the flu. You just don't understand the numbers. And this is one of the things you need to be aware of. Now we are going to get to the victim shaming part of the show, where what's going to happen, and I was reading stories about this actually today. There's a number of restaurants where they won't let you enter if you're wearing a mask. Keep that in mind. That's a different look from what we've been seeing for a while. They've been going forward and they've been telling people, that you're not welcome in that situation. And they're going ahead and they're going to start blaming people and saying, you're causing this to happen. And it won't be long, about a month from now, they absolutely will be gaslighting. That's perfectly said, McSparron. And they will be very aggressive about it. And you will see people like Randy coming on there being like, and I'll save the impression, but I already know what's going to happen. And the second wave is already starting, and it's going to start because a whole bunch of people who are at home are going to start going around. You guys have been asking me about China and a new round. I got a good friend out there in Thailand who keeps me pretty abreast of what happens out there. He says it's a lot worse what they're having. It's much harder on the lungs, and that apparently it's overwhelming the previous strains that were before, including the fact that I think the Chinese suspected that they would go ahead and have immunity from that earlier case strain. So we'll see what happens. I mean, we really don't have good information. It's China. It's literally like looking into a black hole and hoping a quantum particle hits you in the face. But the fact is, when they shut down the first time, we got COVID. That they've shut down a second time is highly telling, and they claim there are no cases, but absolutely no one believes that. What I'm hearing is there's a much longer incubation period involved with this one, and that if it starts to escape there, it will probably be very bad. And the truth is, China, if they get something, I guarantee you they're going to make sure everyone gets it, even if they have to load it up in a diplomatic attaché suitcase. So these are things that I'm worried about and concerned about as we go forward, as well as the fact that there's the ongoing economic problems. We're up to, 39 million unemployed? And I was reading an article today. I was talking about Georgia and the reopening there. All the reopening in the world doesn't make economic growth. People aren't out there spending. They're not taking chances. They're not consuming. And why would you? And what happens when that happens is you have a bunch of people, businesses closing, jobs still being lost, and a bigger economic deficit. People are ready for a restart. They just don't know it yet, and there's no leader out there to do it. At the same time, I'm making fun of Trump. Let's be honest. Joe Biden going out there saying you're not a Democrat you say you can't be a black person if you don't vote Democrat isn't exactly the height of racial sensitivity. And mind you, you're hearing this from a guy who's known in the alt-right. So this is one of the things that's really difficult out there. You really don't have very good options that are out there. You have a bunch of real problems, and you have a bunch of idiots. At the meantime, you have the Fed trying to run the whole economy. economy pretty much, a Congress that's utterly dysfunctional, a political class that wants to spend more time fighting itself, a disease that's raging, and China that is, pretty armed and might be looking at doing something big. I don't know if any of you were paying attention to what happened in Hong Kong, but China basically said, we're going to go ahead and make Hong Kong into more of a security state. And it's going to be interesting if there's no pushback. If there isn't, look for China to make more declarations about Taiwan and an escalation there, because it seems like China might want to have a fight over this. So I don't know if that's going to happen or not. That's a very big prediction, but I do expect to see a more bellicose China moving forward. I expect to see America pushing back about it, and like we talked about on the Thursday show, which hopefully you had a chance to listen to, these are some of the issues that are out there, and I will tell you, I don't know what to make of it. I also finally had the chance to watch that Plandemic movie. Dana insisted I sit and watch it, so we watched it, and I have no doubt that you could have people in the leadership group who are making a lot of money off questionable actions. I have no doubt of that. I have no doubt that the government in certain circumstances is willing to see a lot of people die, but in my mind that makes the virus more harmful, not less so. But I did have an epiphany while I was watching that, which is I realized what the purpose of Coronavirus Central is. Yes, it's to entertain you. Yes, it's to inform you. But realistically, my vow to you, my audience, is I'm here to keep you safe. And while, here's how I put it, I might not get everything right, but you're not going to see a big threat slip by that I'm going to miss. And that's what I'm going to try to do for my audience going forward, for each and every one of you, with gratitude and thanks for the fact you've supported me and my family in this challenging time. And for the fact I think we have a lot of fun together. I mean, we have a core group of people, and I appreciate every one of you. So I'm going to go back, work through the questions like I always do. Let me get a little closer to caught up before you start peppering me with a million questions. But if there's something specific you want to know, let me know. I'll offer the best knowledge I can. Keep in mind, not having my computer is like doing this with one arm tied behind my back. I will tell you, people have been asking about our preps. I'll talk about that just a little bit. We got the potatoes growing really well now. I was in the backyard today staining wood. We're going to have 7 big garden boxes out there. If you want to check out what I was doing, you can actually see at Coronavirus Cast on Twitter. You can take a look at that. And we're getting ready for a long haul stay-in if necessary. And I do think when it comes back around another time, you will not have the option except but to protect yourself. And if a bunch of people are acting stupidly or a more vigorous wave comes out, what I think we absolutely need to do is be prepared to take care of ourselves on our own. And that's what I am focusing on doing. That's what Dana's focusing on doing. And I hope to the extent that your finances, resources, and situation allows, that you're doing the same thing. I want to see each and every one of you get through this safely. And that's the goal of this. Other than that, I've been doing some other stuff, reading some books, some theology and stuff, and trying to get caught up on some of that stuff. I'll talk about that on Sunday on my sort of ruminating, meandering thing that I'm prone to do. I might do it on Saturday. You never know. I don't know when I'm going to do it, but I probably will go in, just talk about some other things, because I really spend a lot of time thinking what I want to do, and being with a community of people who I trust, believe in, and can work with is at the heart of what I want for my own future, because I've spent a lot of years in politics, been on the ugly side of it, and, what happens is you get drawn into fights with people who don't prove the most reliable. And that's part of life. I get that, but I'd like something better. And I think we all would going forward. And this has to be a time, if it's going to have any value, where we go ahead, seek greater truths and a better way of living. So let's go with that. So let me bring up what you guys said earlier, and we'll see here, live chat here. All right. I didn't turn on super chats today, but that's okay. You guys have been generous enough. Jerry Garcia. Odds of reinfection given mutations, ACE2 cloaking, and the rather rapid decline of antibody titers, and what could be closure to high viral loads. I can't tell you the odds, but I can tell you this, that it doesn't seem like antibodies you have last very long, which might sound like terrible news, but maybe it's not. Because we've seen so much of this virus is caught up in the antibody-dependent enhancement functions, and I'm wondering if this virus basically is calibrated to punish people for going out in numbers. And let me give you an example. If you stay home, if you're out and you get sick and then you stay home, it goes away and it's not too bad. But if you're out getting sick and you keep staying out, what ends up happening? You get the added effect of having it take advantage of the fact that there is this antibody-dependent response, the T cells, the B cells, macrophages, all these act kind of funny. So we'll have to see. I saw a couple different pieces out there talking talking about this specific question. I do think the odds of people having a lot of problems are high with a short antibody period. And I think it's a very weird thing where it's going to create this illusion where if you open up, you're okay. But every time you open up within 3 to 8 weeks, you're going to be in a really bad place. So that's something I'm definitely concerned about. Let's see here. Oh, yeah, and hit the like button, please. All right. Northeast Wrestling Alliance. My Eagle versus Dragon podcast was excellent. Thank you, P-Wing. I really appreciate that. And hi to everyone here, by the way. I would go ahead and say hi to each of you individually, but I'm trying to catch up here. Let's see. Dana had rings on her fingers and bells on her shoes, and I knew she was into the blue. She wore scarlet begonias tucked into her curls. I knew right away she was not like other girls. Dana's the best, man. I appreciate it. That's funny, John. Let's see. Mixed time for the working man, our headliner main event tonight. You know what? I tell you, I'll tell you a true story since you mentioned it. I actually was a really big wrestling fan back in the day, and I could cut a hell of a promo. I would be a good booker, though. There's no way I could go ahead and wrestle. I just wouldn't want to, but that's gonna, what are we gonna do with that? But I could have done that. We have to die for the Dow. That's sad, Corona Respector, but you're true. I've seen some of those things from way back when, the small bookings out there, Raven. I remember that. That's actually awesome. The church thing. So let me talk about the church thing for a second, since John brought it up. Here's my worry, and this is a genuine worry. I miss going to church, too, to some extent. Not actually a lot, but I have doctrinal issues. That's aside. But the idea of going to church, I very much miss. But big congregations are going to get a lot of people sick, and I worry that a lot of otherwise well-intentioned Christians are getting bad news sourcing, and that's leading them to take terrible risks that are going to put them and their families at risk and get them in a whole bunch of trouble for no reason that's really needed beyond a media that's really not helping them. And a lot of people on the right want to think that the conspiracy is coming from the left. But I'm going to tell you something that was really interesting. My PayPal got canceled when I was actually running as a Republican for something, not when I was running for a Democrat. And it wouldn't surprise me if some of the stuff that the people are most scared of coming from the left are actually potentially coming from the existing government structure. And I know that sounds a little hard to believe, but the best time to commit a crime is when you know someone else is going to get blamed for it. And that's just the way the world is. And you don't have to like it, but it's actually the truth. And it's kind of cynical, but so is this life. I bet that hat wasn't made in America. I don't know if the hat was made in America. It says it was, but do we believe it? I don't know. Does it say? Let me see if it says. It does not say, so I don't know. It might be a knockoff. I don't know. Not that it matters at this point. I'm not giving any money to that campaign, so I bet. I'd like to live in a world where the chicken's motive for crossing the road doesn't have to be examined. I hear you, Soft too. I'd like to live in a mode where I had a bucket of Colonel right in front of me right now. That'd be awesome. I'm hungry. Let's see. My Made in China shotgun. Vermin Supreme. I've seen Vermin Supreme. And I hope everyone's having a good week. You guys appreciate the character. That's good. New York State's sourcing out EMP to takers to Texas. That's interesting. Needed more alcohol. I know it does. It's true. I'm just getting caught up with you guys here. All right. Trump said he doesn't want the media to see him wearing a mask. Also, Trump supporters are saying that masks are unhealthy. So let's have a real conversation about what masks do and what don't do. The one thing that is true, and this is legitimate, is that wearing a mask will reduce your immune system capacity. For instance, doctors and teachers never get sick because they live in germ factories. And people who are socially distancing probably do have a greater vulnerability to other germs because you've been presumably in a more pristine environment. Leaving aside Randy's trailer, because he's got to live in one of those, that you probably have a situation where there is a slightly elevated risk of that. There was an interesting thing. Dana had brought it up earlier because it came up in the pandemic thing. And I remember reading this study. It was talking about the relationship between flu vaccines or flu shots and the occurrence of COVID. And coronaviruses as a class are more likely to occur or to be more severe, according to the Pentagon 2018 study. You can look it up if you search for it, saying that when you take a flu shot. So if you're someone who regularly gets a flu shot, take it from me, don't. Especially this year, don't, but really don't. There might be a funny interaction there that we need to be concerned about. I can't tell you yet what it's going to be, but I know that the Pentagon actually did some research on this. So, in subject, anything new on the outbreak in Northeast China? What I am hearing from on the ground is that they're very concerned that they have something coming out that's much harder. It hits harder. It takes longer to come out, but it hits more in the lungs. We'll see if that's a difference. Maybe it's going more directly after the ACE2 pathways than what I think we've been experiencing. Frankly, I think what we've been experiencing is something that hits CD147 more, because that would make more sense for the immune response hypoxia pathway with the ground glass opacity. But it basically, from what I'm hearing with this, is people are basically getting asphyxiated because they're having the inability to breathe. There's some sort of fibrosis happening there. I don't know. This is a very rumor tier. I mean, I'm actually in a Chinese chat room, the Chinese chat room, to find out stuff, but I can't speak a lick of Mandarin. And unfortunately, Telegram doesn't translate it. So I've had some people out there looking and trying to figure out, but right now, all I can tell you is I'm keeping a close eye on it. We'll try to find out some more information, and hopefully our government's doing the same. But the problem is, I really don't, I mean, I don't know if you guys agree with me, but I really don't trust the government at all. I don't trust them to keep us safe. I don't trust they even care to keep us safe. I think that part of the government might be in on a conspiracy, and the other part of the government might be more concerned about themselves than us. And I don't know that there's any good actors in this story, you know, because if you look at it, if you look at some of these people, you look at the Fauci people, the National Institute of Health, and what they were funding, they're not the good guys. And Redfield at the CDC, I know they sure as hell aren't the good guys. So I don't know who you should trust. You know, I tell you the truth as I see it. I mean, that doesn't mean I'm always right, and Lord knows I have my biases. But I'm trying to get information out to you as quickly as I can, because there's no good guy in this story except us, the people who are just trying to survive. You know, and if we're gonna walk the road and not have it end up like a Cormac McCarthy novel, we're gonna have to go ahead and do the best we can. So, all right, let's see. New round of lockdowns. I got a haircut, wearing a mask. That must have been weird. Seriously, though, see a Mexican throw a grocery cart in the parking lot area? I did. That's interesting. I haven't seen a Mexican in a long time, but I'm pretty far north. What do you think the percentage is of an American breakdown? You know, I don't know. You know, I have a friend of mine call me, my friend Bob, who's sometimes in here. He's like, what's coming next? I'm like, Bob, I can't predict. I'm like, War of China? I think that's honestly maybe in the cards. And honestly, I think if the poll numbers look really bad going into August and September, and things start to light up, blaming China and getting into a war is kind of the American way. I mean, it's like I said on the show, and the Dragon and the Eagle show, America likes to sink a ship whenever we want to get to a war. So I wouldn't want to be in the Navy right about now, especially considering all the people getting sick on those vessels. Unfortunately, those sorts of things happen. And, you know, it's no different than the Reichstag fire, if you believe that, or the USS Maine. There's a lot of different examples at this. You know, we'll see. I don't know. I am concerned about it. And in terms of a breakdown, I know that they started going out with a lot of evictions, despite the fact more people are delinquent on their mortgage than ever before. Congress is stalling on getting money out there. The unemployment seems to be keeping people afloat. But if they don't continue that in July, I think August might be a really ugly month. I don't think these people are going to be back to work. And I think the whole service sector as we know it is dead. Did I find the canner? I did end up getting a Presto canner. I really wanted to get the All-American one, but I just didn't have it in me to spend the extra $300 that it would have costed to do that. And finding one was very, very difficult. You know, I'm very not used to being late on my preps. And it wasn't so much that it was late. We have freezers and we have food, but we're now adapting our game plan. Excuse me, to an idea that we may need to be in for the long term, and that we need to ride this out, and we're looking at a potentially frightful winter. Now, I don't want to scare you too much, because it's very possible that nothing new may emerge from China. However, the last time something very bad came out there, and I can't make an accurate assessment because the information's so bad. The one really good thing about when COVID first came out was that because of the fact this was new, there weren't established factions, and the news was much more reliable. Everyone is lying. Everything's politicized. It's very hard to believe things that are out there. And even the science is questionable. Like, if you look at some of these studies, they'll test things at wrong times. They'll do things that are sort of shady. So I don't know who to trust. And because I don't know who to trust, I'm going to do what I do when that happens, which I'm going to take a defensive position. I'm going to be very careful. And I'm going to watch and observe much more than I'm going to act. And what we are doing, I should say, my wife and I, is we continue to use any extra resources we have to optimize our long-term position where we can stay here and be very comfortable as best we can as long as we must. And I would recommend that to everyone. And I would recommend also with war drums on the horizon, and I know this is a big ask, but if you're someone who lives in a highly populated area or near a military base, now is a good time, especially if your work permits it or your inclination allows it, to consider being elsewhere. Generally speaking, things don't go well. And I keep imagining if U.S. and China go to war. And the problem is we're in that weird position where neither side can really back down, and they're getting pushed closer and closer. This was a lot like how the lead up to World War I happened. Kind of an ugly deal, and something we need to be very concerned about. Let's see if I have the book on it. I know I have. I literally have so many damn books in here. I mean, you should see. It's ridiculous. Like, you can see books, 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 more books. It's literally all you'd see in my room. Books, more books. Books, books, games, books. So I do nothing but read when I have my spare time as much as I can. And I try to be up on things. And, you know, the funny thing is, the more you read and the more you learn, the less the world will make sense to you. Not because you won't understand it, but because you can't explain it to people who live in a very shallow world where they don't have a very good understanding of what ended up happening. And, I mean, I can tell stories, but people don't believe me, and I get attacked as a messenger. So, unfortunately, I don't get to tell the story the way I want to, because if you talk to that person, they're a bad person. I talk to everybody. I talk to full-on commies. I talk to fascists. I talk to Democrats. I talk to Republicans. I talk to anyone, as long as I can understand their language. And even if not, I'm willing to do a little bit of charades. You know? I don't know. I think it's ridiculous you can't talk to people. I'm talking to everybody. I don't care. I'm not. And the one thing I believe in is people should be able to be heard, and whatever your position is, you know, you should be able to say it. I mean, especially if you're wrong, you need to confront people whose positions are wrong. That's really important. That's how you keep the world safe. Here in Alabama, every metric is going the wrong way. Our governor threw her hands up and swung the gates open. Not surprised that she did that, and we're going to see that in a lot of places, including a lot of places where Democrats are in charge, to be honest with you. I mean, the chambers of commerce are too powerful. The people aren't willing to stay home, and who's going to enforce keeping people in their houses? This isn't China, it's America, and we have to deal with the advantages and disadvantages of that. Under any other circumstance, I would think this is a good thing, and I don't think it's good for the government to have to enforce people to stay home. I don't think it's that. I think the problem is that our people are just so ignorant. The answer to this the answer to this problem was good information early and often, letting people have a realistic appraisal of the risks, a very smart approach to optimum safety, and all those things. And they went out the door in an election year, and now it's become a political virus. And that's just true. It really is. I think the Chinese made that comment, but they're absolutely right. The political virus is worse in America than anything else, and we're going to have to fight through this. And, you know, all of us here, look, I'm a radical centrist. I'm looking for a third way. Always am, always will be. And as a Christian, specifically, it ends up being something very, very different. And I'm going to, you know, I think that's one of those things that I just don't really appreciate in terms of how they've been handling this. So let's continue through your things here. And if I miss comments, I apologize. I'm certainly not trying to. If China pushes a war footing, writes Raven, but distraction from Wuhan and Biolabs responsible, Soros, Rockefeller, and Rothschilds moved a lot of resources and gold there. So if you're going to go deep in a rabbit hole, we'll go through this since Raven, I know, is a pretty deep guy. What ends up happening is, you know, gold, he who has the gold makes the rules. China's been collecting a lot of gold, been helping a lot of international institutions that are very friendly with a lot of the banking interests. And you could argue that part of what this could be is a planned destruction of the idea of constitutional governance. People on the right are not wrong to be suspicious of that. However, the thing they're wrong about is that the people who they're trusting to protect them, the leaders, have been complicit in that from day one. The Trump administration has failed to meet every single one of its major stated objectives. Like, remember during the campaign, it was build the wall. He can't even build a damn ditch across a puddle, you know. What did we have? Lock her up. You know, the only people who've gotten locked up is half his campaign stop, you know, and drain the swamp. And let me tell you, last time I saw, the alligators are swimming nice and good. So he really hasn't had to been very successful in that. All they did was pass a corporate tax cut. It's basically Jeb Bush with a more entertaining haircut. Sad but true, and this is what's happened. And the problem, though, is that he has people acting on passion, not thought. And when people act on passion, they get all riled up. They'll go out there and say things, but he's really not been doing a very good job. So it's just the way it is. And look, I say this, look, I'm a nationalist. I'm an unrepentant nationalist. I would have been more of a hard ass than anyone would have imagined if I was in charge, but it would have been in a way that would have been helpful for everybody, because that's what you got to do. And nationalists came through this pretty strong. The world's going to be much more nationalist going forward, I'll tell you that, because ultimately you need to be protected, and we all need to be protected. That's what it is. All right. But one day, Raven made some really good points. We should go into more detail on that one day when I'm more ready for it. Houston was just graded as an F on social distancing. That's not surprising, Mesa, that would, or Metsa, if I'm saying that right. I apologize if I get it wrong. Yeah, no, it's absolutely, it's going to be awful, and Texas is going to get it really bad. Everything's bigger in Texas, as the story goes, including the bravado, or machismo, as they would say down there. Ay caramba. Let's see. The kindred will have a gathering that will make the pillars of Washington, D.C. shake. You ain't kidding, John. That's absolutely true. And we are the ones who have to come together as one kind to make a difference. And that is really what's going to be important here. Dr. Butter, why do these people have such... Have you noticed... Let me just interject something. I'm not meaning to make fun of this guy, but have you ever noticed that lately it seems like everyone has a name that seems like it's like an NPC character? Like, literally, we got a Homeland Security Secretary named Wolf. It's like, who lines these things up? It's like someone's writing stock characters in a novel. And I don't mean to be slighting anyone for their own heritage. It's not that. Lord knows you never write a Kaczynski in as anything, except like some weird bit character that dies in like one scene. But the problem is, it's just like weird to me. It seems like, sometimes I feel like we're really living in a play. Anyway, I'd have to see it. Rebel Houston, and they have a mask wearing ordinance. Obamagate. Thoughts? My thoughts on Obamagate is that, yeah, probably. I mean, I think that the deep state's been trying to screw Trump from day one. They hate him. They think they should run the government, and they're mad Hillary didn't win. But nothing's going to change. I mean, Washington is a town of scandals. Republicans are trying to screw Democrats. Democrats are trying to screw Republicans. And they're basically both fighting over who's going to screw the American people. So to me, it doesn't really get me that upset, because I have that baked into the cake. It's been that way pretty much since the 1910s. I mean, we go back to Teapot Dome. Why aren't people yelling about Warren Harding? Bastard. Okay, let's see. Predictions from the CDC are bunk, and projections are garbage all amount. I'm more worried about second round and limiting viral load. It's a good idea to do that. Hey, Ross, good to see you out there in New Hampshire. I hope your greenhouse is coming well. I hope all's good up there. One day when this opens up, if we're safe, I'm definitely coming for a visit. I said that. Is it going to get to a point where there will be too much info for the common civilian and will just shut down their common sense thinking? Here's how people understand the world. There's a book about this. It's called The Problem of Choice. You guys ask about what books to read. I forget who it was. I think it was the guy's name was Wilson who wrote it. I would say Edward O. Wilson, but I don't want to swear by that. And the problem is, people can make good decisions if you give them a limited set. If you give people 5 options with clear things they can think through, they'll work through it. If you give people 5,000 options, they don't know how to do it. So what do? And it's a logical thing in psychology. We take shortcuts. That's what ideology is. It's a shortcut where we take a general principle, apply it to thoughts, and then look for signals about who's saying something. And it's the greatest trick for how politicians, priests, clerics, scientists, doctors, whoever lies, because they assume that they know you will assume they are right if you share certain things in common, which is why if you're a politician, for instance, you guys always like to ask me questions about how you win elections, right? The first question you ask someone is a question you can't possibly disagree with. Hey, how's your dog? Do you like dogs? Do you like the Maine Bears? Do you like that's a college team. You ask a question to develop rapport, because people who assume you have something in common with them are going to work with you. They're going to like you. They're going to support you. They're going to do things like that. And that's why politicians put so much time and effort into that. But if you can draw either that empathy or you have that assumed authority, you can get away with a lot. And that's what people are doing. They don't really know. It's not that all people are dumb. It's that they're getting bad information from sources they usually rely upon that frankly probably usually fit their worldview. But when you have extraordinary events and you don't have an honest broker, that's the problem, and that's the crisis, and the media has no one to blame but themselves for this, that they literally have gone ahead and they took what used to be editorialism and put it together with the news page, and they made it into an entertainment complex, and people believe whatever they want to believe, and that's the world we live in. I mean, that's why I say, really, why do I spend so much time talking about certain things, including my faith? You have to look for truth. If you can't start with truth, nothing else matters, and truth is a complicated thing, but the search for truth is always better than the acceptance of lies. And if you don't find out what's right, at least you'll discover a lot of things that are wrong. And that's how you become a better person, a better thinker, and someone who's actually useful to society, as opposed to someone who's just manipulated for cause. Let's see. There's no reason to trust a government that's ethnically cleansing you. I hear that, Eki. I know what you're saying. Mailbum writes, what would you suggest to do with a retirement fund linked to the market? Ooh, that's hard. Cash out because you have a 3-year window. Say you have to hold the money, put it into something safer, and then put it back in the market later. Although I think the market probably will hold for another month. Let it regain some of its value to where we go, until 25, 26, and then get out. And then do what Bill Mitchell would say: if you have to, buy the dip if you have to buy back in. But have the asset on hand. I think you're better for that. And then you can put it back in. And I believe in the CARES Act, they made it so you don't have to pay the penalty. So I'd take a look at that. I thought Judy Mikovits was BS until I saw her rebuttal to the scrutiny. Now I know not what to think. She's not lying about everything. So I watched the video. Let me tell you what struck me. That I thought Judy came off as credible and as someone who was aware and who got screwed by Big Pharma. And believe me, Big Pharma screwing people over for cures is true. And I do think it's at the heart of why hydroxychloroquine is so attacked, because people can't make money on it, and that's a problem. For Big Pharma anyway, because I've seen things like this from the Lyme community. However, I think the way they constructed that documentary with the things around what she said kind of led to places where she wasn't necessarily going, and it represented a very simplistic view of what was happening in this virus. And I will tell you, it's not made up. It's not something that's just it's artificial, but it's not something that is superficial, I should say. And that we need to be very aware of it and very safe from it. And, I think that her asking questions about motives, I'm not going to suggest that, she seemed to hint that Fauci was trying to get everyone killed. Although there's an interesting argument to be made that Fauci could be a CIA asset. And I would make that argument on the basis that he's been around a really long time in a really tough town, in a field that has special importance. And the agency's been known to put people in government in other areas. They're not supposed to do that, but if you guys want to read about things in history, read about these boys. I'll grab one book for you. If you want to read about family, read about the Dulles brothers. Here you go, Alan Dulles. You can read about him and about his brother and all the horrible things here that they did, because they really built up the security state that exists here in the United States. You can read about Alan. You can read about John Foster Dulles and what they basically did after the coup against JFK. Because that's really what it was. America was lost when Kennedy was shot for a lot of different reasons, and that's a whole nother story. But yeah. Oh, yeah, John, I'm so glad you mentioned it. The OSS, the military, should have never given up authority to the civilian government. And the fact that Truman was kind of clueless and let the CIA run roughshod. The National Security Act of 1947 probably did as much harm to the United States in terms of liberty and freedom and pure blood and death as the Federal Reserve Act. But people don't ever talk about that. They don't understand that part of it. Let's see, where are we here? I went too far up. All right, give me 1 second. I got to figure out where I was here. So we were talking about Judy and if she was lying. So in Pearl Harbor, 9/11, our rulers have no qualms about sacrificing falls, right? Hey, Building 7, right? No one ever talks about that. And the thing is, kids grow up now that don't even realize 9/11, man. That was huge if you grew up in it. And that story has never been fully explained. It probably never will be. Let's see. What happens if China sells off all of its U.S. debt? The U.S. dollar begins to tank. And that is actually a really great question, Corona Respector. What we would see is we would see $1 trillion get dumped. Russia would probably dump a bunch. And they would basically beg other countries and other banks to pick it up. But if China does that, at the same time oil is low, and at the same time they go ahead and put out a gold-backed yuan or something, it could be a major play in the game. So we'll see what happens and how hard China wants to push. I think China wants to push gentle enough to see Trump lose. I do believe that they would rather deal with a Democrat in office, and I do believe that if that happens, given that they have their own economic problems and what's happening, they may make a play for Taiwan in the in-between period. That's a big and scary prediction, but they've got problems too in their domestic market isn't coming back, so they've had to nationalize a lot of things. So they haven't been able to export things away, so they don't have money. So if you don't have money and you have a regime that's built on getting people rich, you're going to have to figure out how to do something different. And them pushing that way is something we should be scared of. Although there was that report from what's it called, CICIR, that was out there saying that they wanted to be a little bit careful. So who knows? China has strategic flexibility. And I think at this point they're going to watch and see how bad the U.S. flounders. So that's an interesting question. Susan asked me, what books do I recommend us reading? Well, you can start with my library here. I will tell you something. I haven't read it yet, but someone whom I trust deeply told me that I needed to read this book to understand this better. The Coming Plague by Laurie Garrett, Newly Emerging Diseases in a World Out of Balance. Now, it's written from the perspective of talking about why natural diseases are popping up more, that we're going to other places, but it's something that might be worth looking at. And I would say if you really want to go dark and deep into rabbit holes, two books I always recommend: The Report from Iron Mountain on the Possibility and Desirability of Peace. You will find that it's a really ugly look at the world. Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars. These are books. You can find these ones online, by the way, as PDF. So if you really want to take a look at those, what do we got? We got Sun Tzu's Art of War over here. I got all sorts of fun stuff. Who knows? Maybe we'll have a book review day at some point. But if you have a specific question, we can definitely go into that, and we can cover that in a lot of depth, whatever you're particularly interested in. I mean, at this point, you guys would find it crazy what I do. I literally spend my time reading Old Testament pseudographica, trying to understand the history of the apocalypse and what was predicted. So that's what I do with my spare time. Just shows you what a fun guy I am, right? But who knows? One day I might come out with some really surprising things. I'll just put it to you that way. And I work at that all the time. But that is my hobby. All right, we're going back. I'm just trying to find where I was in the list here. And thank you, by the way, thank you everyone for joining us tonight and going through with your questions. Like I said, I did get the Presto 23 quart canner. Very excited about that. Let's see, it looks like a lot like 1938, 39. I think it's more like 35 when you had Ethiopia getting invaded by the Italians and the Spanish Civil War on the foreground. Keep an eye on Brazil falling apart. That's going to be something that's interesting. Let's see, John writes, the idea of the tracking system being rolled out as a result of COVID can be tied into so many databases. Absolutely true. I am very, very uncomfortable with the tracking system because I know the government will use it badly. So who's the douche who always likes to add one dislike to your videos? It's a good question. I don't know who it is, but I have a hunch. There are people who get paid from the Southern Poverty Law Center and the ADL to watch every one of my videos. So every now and then I like doing them at odd times just to make life miserable for those people. Politics is a full contact sport, man. The Art of War. If you want insight into CCP, bring peace and communication. The Art of War. Who would have read that? Great book. Absolutely must read. More of a Clausewitz fan myself, but it's always good to know your enemy. If you know your enemy, you will win 1,000 battles. Someone said that. I don't know who. Okay. Those are some interesting books, though. It's like, I guess if you were asking for a philosophical book, what would I have people read? My favorite philosophers is Soren Kierkegaard, for what it's worth. So take that, sickness unto death, fear and trembling. The idea that you get past the existential crisis of life through a leap of faith. Danish philosopher, kind of a little happier than Sartre and Camus, if you've ever read any of those, like The Stranger. I know, we couldn't make those things. Well, welcome to the party, Kim. Sorry you're a little late, but that's okay. Do I think the stock market will actually crash? If so, what does that look like? What percentage decrease will we see in stock prices? What events will take place after? So Jenny asked that. I think that the bank has to crash before the market can crash. The bank has committed to putting as much money into the market as required. So what has to happen is a general dollar default. And what you could argue, and in fact I did in the one, or I didn't, but I grabbed the piece that did, you could argue that the destruction of the dollar is the effort to destroy the American stock market, because if the American dollar loses its purchasing value, American consumerism becomes worthless, and the stock market won't be able to sustain itself at any point. So look for the new geopolitical battle to be destabilization of the United States dollar, and how do you do that? You force the United States to go into a lot of debt. How do you do that? Well, if I was China, okay, and if I was sitting there in the Forbidden City, let's say, and I was trying to plan this in the CCP headquarters, I would convince Russia to start acting up in Ukraine, Venezuela to act up in Cuba if they can, and see if you could get Iran to go ahead and start threatening in Iraq, make the U.S. overcommit itself. The United States in the 1980s did the same strategy. Is this, they spent a whole bunch of money in Afghanistan. Before they were terrorists, the Mujahideen were our friends, as you might remember from 1980s. What was that boy? Charlie Wilson's War was the book and the movie about it. And what you would see is that what they were able to do is they made Russia overspend, or I should say the Soviet Union. They made them overspend to a point where they weren't able to survive anymore. And that was one of the big problems that ended up happening, that they ended up being so broke. So when Perestroika came around and Gorbachev was trying to cut deals, ultimately a collapse in the ruble was at the heart of Russia's breakdown. And then they had to begin to get help. They were told they would get it. They had to let East Germany or escape Germany reunite. And then after that, solidarity picked up in Poland, and they rolled Russia back to borders, actually, that were 200-300 years old. Because some of those places, like Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, Ukraine had been part of Russia since I think the early 1800s, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe older. I should actually know the answer to that, but I just, it's been a while since I've studied Russian history, you know? That was a fun book on here. This one was a fun one. A People's Tragedy, The History of the Russian Revolution. I have all sorts of good stuff. And I make it a point to know everything about everything. What can you do? But it's tricky, you know? Alright. When my dad was dying and hallucinating from pneumonia, he would say we were all in a play. Well, that's what Shakespeare said as well, and, you know, without making light of it, it really is true. If you begin to think eternity's long and life's short, you reorient your life differently, and honestly, that's something I've been going through. I spend a lot of my time thinking about what really matters in life, and it isn't politics. So I would say to that, keep yourself safe, keep your eyes focused upward and downward. Downward at what will threaten you, upward at what's important for the long term. You know what I'm saying? No, I'm not going to block the person. All right. But yeah, so the stock market, I do think that if there is a major shutdown, the stock market may go down 20-30%. I really thought the Fed wouldn't jump in this aggressively, but they are going to run out of tools to use at the rate that this economy is blowing through in about 6 months. So if you wanted to have a date on it, keep an eye for what happens really from September to December. If they can weather that, if another really bad outbreak doesn't happen, then they might make it. And if they make it, it'll be kind of a bad thing for the rest of us because there'll be a few companies owning everything. You'll have your choice between Amazon and Walmart.com for every single thing you want, but everything else will be gone and the country as a whole will be a lot poorer. If the Democrats win, you might get UBI out of this. So 1783, that wasn't too bad off. I was close. I don't know what war was that in 1783. Would that have been, see, the French Revolution was in 1789. It must have been one of those little, they must have been fighting the Turk. Anyway, I should know the history better. I'm a little disappointed in myself. I've played so many games at Europa Universalis, I usually know those things by the back of it. But my favorite game to play is Poland, and I end up conquering the Teutonic Order and then marching south usually and trying to prevent myself from getting swallowed by Russia. What events will we see take place after it crashes? I mean, I do think UBI is eventually coming. I really do, because if you have this recurring pandemic, plus it's a good way of controlling people. If the end game of this really is control, they will offer money, but it's the strings attached that I'm really worried about. And I hope they're not onerous, because if there are, then we're going to have a civil war. And onerous can be a lot less than people assume. So, yeah, I agree with that. Screw Dulles. The first nation to back their money with gold will run the new monetary system. Absolutely true, Ross. And China and Russia are the peak contenders based upon tonnage. Is there any way for the next relief bill to pass without any pork barrels? If not, why? What is the problem with not streamlining the bill? What people want is coverage for healthcare during the time of COVID. They want to know unemployment is going to continue, and they want to have a little bit of money in their pocket. Whoever passes that would be very popular. Why don't they do it? Because ultimately, we are not being paid. Politicians are not paid to do what's popular. They're paid to do what gets them elected. And if you don't understand the difference, really interesting. Oh, Judy went on Paul Cottrell. That's interesting. I like Paul. Paul's great. Paul rubs people the wrong way, and I get that, but I watch some of his videos. He gets on there, let me explain to you why this guy's a prick. And then he goes to his videos, like, no, that's true. That's a piece of crap. And he does this in this sort of unassuming sort of, I I don't know, kosher way. I don't know how else to put it. The guy's Jewish. I'm not insulting him. He just is. And he does it in a way that's just very entertaining. So, but I'm sure he did a good interview with Judy. Let's see. Good question, John. That's a good idea. Book of the month. Well, I could tell you what was the last book I read? I was reading a book about the Gospel of Thomas by Elaine Pagels, not because I agree with Elaine, but because I've been trying to differentiate what was why certain things were out there. And I'm going to be reading the books of Jasher, Jubilees, along with the book of Enoch, and elements of Pseudographica is what I am working on right now. And as far as other books, I have a lot of books coming in about brain waves, theta waves, gamma waves, alpha waves, beta waves, and 5G technology, because everyone asks me, so I want to be aware of what the hell I'm talking about. And what else do I have coming? About electromagnetism and bodies. There's a book called The Body Electric. It's supposed to be pretty good, an older book, but the fact is we do heavily deal with the issue of electronics, and I do think ELF is very bad. Howard, I'm glad you mentioned that, extremely long frequencies. Did you know there was a giant project by the military, the DoD, actually in northern Minnesota and Wisconsin? They spent tens of millions, maybe hundreds of millions, building this giant transmitter array up there. No one even knows about this thing. And then they mysteriously shut it down right before it was supposed to open. Those are the sort of projects you really want to look into. The idea was they were going to use it for submarine communications, because you can kind of use extra low frequency to theoretically get between and underneath certain obstacles. But you can also use it to go ahead as an ability to affect emotional states. And you could look about some of these things. I think one of you, I think maybe it was John, talked about Operation Stargate. You wouldn't believe some of the stuff our government has actually researched. And just because you're not prepared to believe it's real, and just because it's not something commonly talked about, don't discount odd possibilities, because even if you think about it, everything you do is shaped by wave functions, right? Light is a wave, your eyes. Sound is a wave, your ears. Mouth, me talking to you, I'm manipulating air. All of those things that are out there in front of it. And like John said, he's talking about Stargate. I assume that it does happen. But the ELF thing is interesting because it was linked with a thing. There was something called, a couple years ago, I studied something called Operation Fire Sign, and it's kind of a really obscure thing, but it went something like this, where Project Bluebeam would be used to project certain images at the same time that you had ELF projecting certain emotional states. So you would be in a panic or euphoric state while you saw things projected onto basically the atmosphere. And that, whether it be UFOs, holy visions, whatever, it's a hell of a way to manipulate people by having supernatural events that can actually be caused by people. And I actually did all the research on it. It was crazy. There was the telescope in Chile that could do it, the Bluebeam technology that had been being used in Dubai publicly, and then I find this giant array up there that was like HARP, that was much, much bigger in Minnesota and Wisconsin. I forget the name of it. It was like in the late 70s. You'd have to look it up. But these things actually do exist, and, to what use they're considered, I don't know. But I will tell you this. I had a friend who was incredibly high up in the intelligence community. I had a long conversation with him about this, and he said, well, you read the documents. What are you asking me for? So take that for what it's worth. But, I mean, you learn things. And the problem is the world is weirder than people are prepared to understand. I mean, it really is quite bizarre. And, I could explain things, but I don't know if you'd believe me. I don't know if I'd believe me. But you can do your own research. That's what's nice about this. I drop hints on here. And, the thing about my show that's kind of nice is I'm just disreputable enough that I can get away with saying the truth. And I think that's a good place to be, because if people took me any more seriously, I'd be in real trouble. Any updates on the food supply and supply chain disruptions? Keep an eye on the protein links. A lot of people, huge amount of people getting sick at these factories. Tyson Foods was the latest one that I saw is having a big problem. Also, lack of money going in there, lack of migrant labor coming in that is generally used in those areas. Those are going to be problems. And if we start to see, like we saw in that mink farm in the Netherlands, this start to spread in the animal community, protein shortages could be a very, very big thing going forward. Right now, appears to be holding steady. I need to do a more in-depth look at it. But I would say if you want to follow that very, very closely, Christian over at Ice Age Farmer is on top of that 24/7. That's his specialty. And actually, I should check him out so I can cheat and copy some of it, because he does a really good job. So Kim asks, sorry if this has been asked, Tom, but what do you think about DeSantis announcing today that opens summer camps and youth activities immediately? Well, I don't know. I think that parents would have to be pretty negligent to send their kids there, but DeSantis has done a terrible job. Florida's had a bunch of sick people. Although I will say one thing that's been interesting is how many of these people are dying in nursing homes specifically and what they're doing there that they're doing wrong. Something's obviously going very wrong beyond people just being old and this spreading. It's a little bit weird. We'll keep an eye on that. But I don't think people going out in large groups is very smart. So Audra asks, what do I think Tennessee's going to look like in a month? I'm staying home while some of my pals are trusting the government and going out. And she says hi to me and Dana. So hi to you, Audra. I hope all's well there. I think people are calculating their risks. I mean, honestly, I think a lot of people think they're going to get this and it's going to be one and done and it's not going to be that bad. And I don't really know if that's going to be the case. And I don't know what the long-term consequences are. And I don't know what it means if you have this and get it again. The one thing, if the antibodies go away, is you would think it wouldn't be that bad. But if you're getting it once and then you get it again and you keep getting it, I really have wondered if there's an amplifier effect, like a reverb function. And I'm predicting that's going to be a problem. So I think that that's something to be very careful about. And I've told you what I'm doing. I don't even like going south from where I live. I go about 30 miles south every now and then to the big grocery store because I have to. I get myself all suited up properly to go do this, and I go do a little bit of shopping and get some food because I don't want to exhaust all of our supplies. Get some more of those. I like the apple ones better than these Coronas. I'll actually be happy with that. All right. Tom arrived into the area of Maine appearing as a gray bearded wise young wizard of 400 years old. He was around long before Maine was founded and before the years of the lamps. Well, I appreciate that, man. I tell you what, there's nothing like feeling young like that. The thing about it is, my background is in Middle Ages studies, actually, so I really do feel that way, and everything old is new again. Novorossiya on high alert. Здравствуйте, камeraden. Absolutely. What exactly is a war game? You reference these often. Thanks, Jason. So a war game is this. War game is where you take a scenario that you're thinking about, and you create different actors that play different roles, and you play it out like you would. Like, imagine a game of chess. Okay, chess is a perfect example of a war game. When I go out and you say someone represents one side, someone represents the other side. So say we were having a war game. So there's some people here who could do it. Let's say we asked John, who's a pretty canny guy, to play the role of China. And we would have Raven, he could play Russia. I think he'd do a pretty good job. And then we have someone else play Israel. And someone would play... Actually, we'll have Eki play Israel. He'll appreciate that irony. And we would have someone else play the Federal Reserve Bank. Maybe we'd have... let's see, who would be good at it here? We could have my friend from New Hampshire. We could have him do it. I don't know what his name is in here. We could have all these people do it. And what we would do is we'd set a scenario and we'd explain to one another what we would do in those scenarios. And this is how you figure out what people would do. You give different people different responsibilities. You look at their assets. You do a lot of different analysis, but you do, if you really want to go high level, you do a SWOT analysis: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And you go ahead and you figure out what those are, and then you figure out how you can win a battle. And if you really want to understand modern warfare, probably the most important idea of modern warfare, it's a simple one, is called, beyond asymmetrical warfare, is called the OODA loop. Named by a guy by the name of Colonel John Boyd came up with it. It stands for Observe, Orient, Direct, and Act. And what it means is this: that in battle, the most important thing you can have is initiative. If you are making decisions, the other side is not. And so you want to get inside your enemy's OODA loop. Landon, good to see you. Glad you're here, brother. Anyways, you want to get inside your enemy's OODA loop. So how do you do that? What you do is you create situations where they're constantly reacting rather than acting, because no war's ever been won on the defensive. If you don't believe that, look at the history of French military successes in the 20th century. Oh, wait, there aren't any. So those are some of the things that you should go ahead and take a peek at. Well, that's not fair. They did some things in World War One, but ultimately, these are the sort of things you want to do. So when you're wargaming, what you figure out is what your own opponents and your own weaknesses are, and you go ahead and work to go ahead and to identify them. So that's what a war game does. And you know what? If I could arrange a conference call, we could war game out the future. Because I need some real crusty, cynical types. But fortunately, we got a couple in this room who I know could actually do a pretty good job in that role, and I could play whatever role you like. I mean, I always say I'd make a great red team planner, and when I say that, I just mean this. In a lot of government exercises, they have what's called the blue team and the red team. The blue team are usually presumed to be the good guys. It's probably from Cold War thinking. And the red team are the bad guys who go out there and they plan these awful things. And a lot of times the red team actually wins because they are willing to contemplate strategies that others are not. And that's what wars tend to come down to. Whoever's willing to do the most rotten thing usually wins. And if you're smart about it, you can usually get away with it without being clear that you did it. So that's what war games are, so that you can understand that. All right, let's see. Let's continue going through your comments here. You guys still haven't gotten me my plaid cap, by the way. I'm waiting for my plaid Wizards hat. I'm very disappointed in you all. I expect more from my audience. You guys need to step it up. Have I ever read Marcus Borg? If I have, I don't remember. You'd have to refresh me. What do I think about Rand Paul's take on this? Rand Paul is a doctrinaire libertarian, pretty much. So his idea of opening up is not surprising to me. It's what I would expect. Scully and Mulder have to deal with ELF. True story. I used to love to listen to Art Bell as a kid, and I'd imagine, because I grew up in Phoenix, and I actually saw the Phoenix Lights, if you want to go down that particular thing, that I'd go out to Dulce, New Mexico, and look for the underground tunnel networks and all that. I really wanted to do that. Go see the Alien up in Rachel, Nevada, and all that. And it would be interesting. And I've learned some things, but I never got that deep into it. Although, interestingly, I mean, my own take on aliens is I think they're transdimensional demonic entities. But that's just my take on it. I think that there are things in this world that appear different than what they are, and you got to be very careful not to trust your eyes. You got to kind of trust behaviors, too. Take a look at this. So SG-1 is real. Project Stargate has to do with something called remote viewing. There's a guy by the name of Ingo Swann you could look up. Think of it like psychic mediums, but it's a little more involved. If any of you ever saw Ed Dames back in the day, you know, Dr. Doom, you might know what it is. He was involved with that. Let's see. Look at the demographics of nursing homes. Negligence could be a factor. Let's see. The Tyson food story came out 2 hours after they reported they were offering North Carolina. Absolutely makes sense here. And that's really sad. But, I mean, that's the economy. We live in a world where money makes the world go round until we make it otherwise. I mean, I will tell you something. In fact, I'll drop this on you guys, see if you like it. I would like to imagine, as a thought idea, and maybe I will do it in one show because it'd be very hard to do it, but to imagine a world not driven by commerce. Imagine if people just lived together and worked on things that made each other happy, and instead say, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that, and we figured out a way to have automation exist in a way where it would meet our basic needs. We actually do have the capacity to have that choice now. A paradise is waiting for us to have it if we would just be willing to go ahead and accept the idea that we all could have what we want if we don't have to have everything. But the problem is people are a little bit paranoid, and our reptile brain always says we want more and more and more. And if that doesn't happen, as David Icke says, there's always reptilians waiting to tell us more, right? You know, you always got to watch for them with the old slit eyes. Let's see. RFR radiation is your smart special military application in residential technology. Is the one they really perfected. TV by design is hypnotic. Makes sense, man. Subliminal messaging, programming, all that's been around for a very long time. And, you know, this is the perfect device to control you. It's why you need to unplug sometimes. Take a day away from technology. Actually, take a day away from your computer, your internet, your phone. Watch how much differently your brain works. Or watch how much easier it is to read a book if you want a real simple example. You'll be amazed what you can do. Your memory improves markedly, too. It's really fascinating. What do I think about North Carolina opening, JH writes? Well, I think it was a bad idea, inevitable, it was going to happen, and I would keep an eye for problems to emerge, especially in Charlotte, and maybe in, I'm trying to think what would be a problem town where you have large grounds of people close together. Maybe in the Triangle. Let's see if that happens. But, I mean, you know, but it's inevitable. Everyone wants that because realistically, it just hasn't been bad enough. And I guess I get that. I wouldn't even be as opposed to the reopening if people were doing it safely, but they're not because they've been led very poorly, and people follow. I mean, people always trust the wrong people. It's just one of the universal truths of this. You know, people trust those who tell them what they want to hear, and you really shouldn't trust that. Like my show, I've had some people tell me over the course of the show, like, I hate listening to your show, but you end up being right, so I come back to you. Sorry, but that's what you got to do. I mean, you know, I'm not here to tell you what you want to hear. I'm here to tell you what to do. Let's see here. Where am I? Oh, man, you guys have so many comments. Okay, let's continue. Where am I? Just trying to find... And so, dude, John, if I could hang out with Treebeard, man, you know I'd be rolling with ants. Most traumatic thing ever happened to me when I lived in Jackman, Maine, was watching trees get taken down. Maybe I'll have Dana reenact the rape of the forest. It was really bad. Do I ever have a hard time when I get suited up in my area? No, they don't really. I mean, there's a couple people. If I went down to other areas, but New England's not too bad about that. There are a lot of people who don't, but I do it. Pick up some Shiner. I don't know if you could get Shiner up here. It's a good Texas beer, but up here, usually people who are higher up in the scales will drink like Sam Adams and stuff like that. Although up in this town, it's weird. Like little logging towns in Maine care about cheap beer, so they're split between like Bud Light and Miller Lite, and some people have what else do they like to have up here? But too far north for Yingling like that in Pennsylvania. So let's see. I was a historical miniature war gamer. That's hardcore, Brian. I appreciate that. Assess, decide, engage. OODA loop. There you go. Blue 4 tends to be blinded by their own self-interest. Yeah, that's true. It would be interesting if you... It would be nice if you played the war games. Could be watched by all to see how it works out. Well, I tell you what. If there are people willing to play, maybe I'll talk to some people. And maybe we'll do... If we can do like a little conference call, you wouldn't be able to see it. But maybe we'll do a recording where I could do a recording with 2 or 3 people where we act these things out. Howard says UBI or bust. I don't know how else they're going to do this. They need, for the American economy to continue, they need consumption, which means a lot of spending. For consumption to happen in a time when people aren't working, you got to give money into their hands. What else are you going to do? You've shut down credit, which is a way of making money off them. So instead, you're going to have to give a dividend back. And that's what all these stimulus checks are about. They're about artificially propping up the money, trusting that money will go very quickly back into the market. You know, I think it's something that's out there, though. The price of it's going to be inflation, but ultimately, if you take care of the people at the top and you let the people at the bottom go down, you might have something happen. Schlitz, man. Good Milwaukee beer. My dad used to drink that Schaefer stuff, or PBR. PBR is actually big up here, too. Pabst Blue Ribbon for those who are not beer drinkers. Let's see. What do we do? The Men Who Stare at Goats. I know exactly what you're talking about by that, John. That's interesting. Have I seen the interview on the geneticist on the YouTube channel Computing Forever that was banned? I did not. You'll have to let me know what he said. I'm getting really worried that these numbers this weekend could get crazy. Absolutely true. CRISPR's the isn't that the sequencing thing? You'll have to remind me. I know that I know what that is, but it's late, and I was out very, very early working in the field. So if you remind me, I'll tell you what I think of it. Because if you just cue me, I know I'm familiar with it. Nevada unemployment rate's 28.2%. You know, really about half the working age adults or older are out of the workforce at this point. Absolutely crazy, getting worse here. And I see the evidence you were wearing a Trump shirt. Hey, Tom, just woke up. Yeah, no, I am wearing a Trump shirt because you missed my little What should we do? Should we close with the? Should I put Randy's hat back on? Should I put the wig on if I can figure out what the damn bottom is? All right, so we'll look like this for a little bit. It's just so you can see. I love to go ahead and be the passionate Trump supporter. Now, I will tell you, Trump has lost my vote, by the way. He lost it a long time ago for a lot of different reasons. And there's pretty much nothing he can do to get back. And honestly, I'm beyond politics at this point. I have to be, because if I wasn't, how could you trust me, right? That's how it is. You know, it's an interesting look, though. I will tell you this, so. CRISPR is for gene editing. Okay, so, all right, so I know I've seen this. Yeah, I have seen the stuff on CRISPR and gene splicing. Look, I've said that there's clear evidence of a gene inserted in this. There are those 12, codons, is that the word, that were put in there, the PRRA insert. I look better with the wig. Well, thanks. I appreciate that. Yeah, no, the wife would agree with you. Maybe one day I'll go around. I wish I could have hair, man. I would look, maybe I should have like one of those long beards that goes down like this, and I'll look, if I really grew in everything that I could, I would look like Rasputin, and I'd sound just as crazy too. Maybe I'll come in wearing, you know, the right sort of look for that, but yeah, the serious strike was not good, and yeah, there was a lot of things. I look like Bonnie Raitt, says Paige, or Pagadocious, I'm sorry. That's funny. Yeah, you can insert genes. And look, I absolutely agree that you can insert genes into there. They've been doing it since 1999, 2003. Absolutely, the CRISPR is true. And it's the best argument that's out there. And I see that what they've been doing is attacking people. Like Martinson's got himself caught up in all these fights where people are attacking him. I'm used to people saying horrible things about me. So what do? I just don't engage them. Why the hell would I talk? You know, it's just absolutely true. Hey, babe, want a beer? Well, you know what it is? It's an excess of testosterone. That's what it is. My dad, who was also bald, always said you could have hair or you could have brains. So I think that that's absolutely true. Yeah, I know your position, Dave. I understand that you think the Treasury owns the Fed, but I'll tell you what, man, I absolutely think it's the opposite. The bankers have been around a lot longer than the United States government are, and they're not going anywhere. You mark my words on that. But if you want, I'll bet you a beer on it, and we'll see what happens. But hopefully you're staying safe out there, because I know what you've been doing. You've been doing God's honest work, so I appreciate that. So I guess that covers most of the questions you guys have. I mean, you tell me, what do you want me to talk about next week? Because I really haven't looked at it very much. Is there something specific you want me to take a look at? And I will tell you, I could talk about cure stuff, but honestly, it's all circumstantial depending what you deal with, and it's going to change real fast. That's why I don't cover it very much. I do look for symptoms and threats, ideas to keep you sick. Your doctors are going to make your own medicine, so that's out there. I've had a lot of people ask me to talk about prepping more, about getting ready for this, and I'd love to know what sort of things you want to know. So you got to let me know. Give me a little feedback. If you want to share it in the comments, that's absolutely fine. If you'd rather send me an email, that's beautiful too. That doesn't have any problem with it. And, I will share with you what I know, when I know it, how I know it. And if I know something and I'm right or wrong, well, I just do the best I can with it. And, the show has been going along well, and I've committed. I'm going to go ahead and I'm trying to get to episode 100, and then who knows what I'm going to do at that point. We'll see what's happening out there. I like talking to my audience. I like talking to you guys. I like keeping you safe. I'm going to be getting committed to doing that. That's something I want to do, and I'm going to do it in a broader way. I mean, to be honest with you, I'm probably going to end up spending a lot more time with my wife. Yeah, no, I am. I've been spending, well, that's why I take Tuesdays and Thursdays off, as well as Saturdays and Sundays, so we can catch up. But I probably will be talking a lot more about my faith going forward. Honestly, I can't speak truth and pretend. I don't really separate out the bigger truth from the smaller truth. I just don't think that way. I mean, I think that you have to live life in accordance with your genuine beliefs, and if you have a transactional view of beliefs, then you're someone who will sell someone out for a nickel. And whether you sell them out because you think your idea is better, or you sell them out because of monetary gain, you're still kind of a dishonest trader piece of crap. And I just don't really like people like that. And it's not anything, I understand everyone does that a little bit, but this is an opportunity to reset the world, and I'm going to be idealistic about it. So that is what I'm going to do, and we'll see what we end up with that. So I'll say a very quick prayer. If you have any last minute questions, get them through, and we will talk about that. So Heavenly Father, I pray, as I always do on the Friday nights, for the safety of our audience, from everyone from Republican Randy to Democrat Donna and everyone in between, that we are going to go ahead and get through this, that the families are safe, that the children don't get hurt, that our seniors' lives will be varied, that those seeking safety will be protected, and that I would hope that people use the opportunity to ask questions, to ask the bigger questions, including the questions of why we're here, what we're doing, and let them lead to your gospel truth in the name of your Son, our Savior, Jesus Christ. So I'll pray that in Jesus' name, amen. I did have a Facebook group, but I canceled my own involvement on Facebook because I hate Facebook, and nothing good ever comes out of Facebook. It's basically where people go to talk crap on one another, and they really have a lot of issues with one another. I just don't like Facebook. I wish I had something better. I mean, I like Telegram a lot better. We have better engagement, but those things do tend to go ahead in different ways, and I think that is something to definitely worth considering and watching as that goes. But it is up there. Actually, Dana's running it while I throw my tantrum and I stay out of there. I will eventually probably come back on there, but I don't like it. I always get, what's funny to me? I mean, do you guys ever get this experience? Because you guys have listened to the program, you've learned a lot. Do you ever have someone who has like one piece of information and you have like 500, but they have their one piece of information and they hold it around like, yeah, but this. And it's like, that's probably where Republican Randy came from, actually, this idea that I've dealt with so many people come up to me and say, oh, hey, Q, hey, this. And it's just like, it's a load of crap, man. I mean, if you guys haven't figured it out yet, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. And I can't inform people who don't want to be informed. But what I can do is help keep intelligent, smart people safe. That's what I'm doing. That I am drinking Corona Familiar, La Cerveza Más Fina. So anyway, you guys all have a wonderful evening, and who knows, maybe I'll come in. I could actually do a pretty good Mexican impression, but it would get me in so much trouble, to be honest with you, because I already get in trouble for when I talk about any group, like, órale ese, ¿cómo están, vatos? Because I grew up in Arizona, so I know how to do, like, that gangster Mexican accent a little bit, but, it's just something I grew up with. But yeah, we'll do more impressions. We'll do fun, and I'm sure at some point your buddy in the sunglasses will be back. Everyone loves Conspiracy Guy, so I might bring him back on Wednesday. He doesn't have a name. We'll just call him Enigma because that's good, but not like the Joker thing. So that's absolutely okay. So thank you everyone. New Albion is absolutely the answer. It's awesome work. We're gonna have a lot of fun with that. And I will be back Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Hopefully, I have my computer back at the end of the week. I'm trying very, very hard. So if you guys have any questions, suggestions, please write me. Let me know what is going on, and we'll go from there. So you guys have a very good night. Hopefully, you enjoyed the show. God bless.